Hello and welcome to the jury roundtable for Rewrite the Stars. So we have three of our jurors here. We might get some more in later. We'll see what happens. But for now, we are here to discuss the merits of the final three. Those three being Caleb Reynolds, Justin, and Jay. So this is kind of your guys' time, however you want to use it. So if you want to go by finalist, by like week or whatever you want to do, it's your guys' time. I am here to mediate, moderate, whatever I need to do. So I may have questions for you guys as we go. So I don't know how you guys are wanting to do this, but whoever wants to start can start.
All right, I'll break the ice. So regardless of who makes the final two, are we going to ask them to pick a number or flip a coin? No. But for real, anyone want to start? Josh, you were in the game longest.
Well, not by that much. I think it was like half an hour?
Yeah. It was well, the Madison's eviction started at 10 and Josh was out by 11, so.
Oh, within
a whole hour more. No, but I think for me, when I'm like trying to weigh between the three of them, like I feel like they played slightly different variations to me of the same game. Mm-hmm. Like, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think they played exactly the same game, but I think the foundation of all three of their games was exactly the same. I think they all sort of played, and maybe a little more so with Caleb being under the radar, but I feel like they all tried to minimize their threat level. They won competitions when they needed to, sort of popped up, won the competition, made a move, and then popped back down again and let other people sort of come over top of them in terms of like threat level. And so I think for me, it's just trying to find what makes each person stand out individually, because I feel like it's very much so the same type of game. Not necessarily the same game, but the same type of game.
No, I agree with that. I've been thinking about that a lot. Like right after my eviction, I feel like I had different thoughts. Now that I've like thought about it a little bit more, I think I definitely agree that they've played very similar games. Whereas like I think Jay and Caleb were kind of on different sides playing the same game. Like this game didn't really have like two clear cut defined sides at different points. Like it was very fluid, so it's hard to say. But like I think that Caleb was working with a lot of similar people, Jay was working with a lot of similar people, and then Justin. And the reason that Justin still kind of like stands out to me is the fact that Justin was able, in my eyes and from what I've seen, to play in between and play the middle of all of those people better. But again, like that's just based off of like my perception right now. But I agree that like the gameplay styles are very much the same.
Yeah, I do think like that was something Caleb and I talked about a lot in the game, was that like we were sort of on different sides of things, but still we're trying to work together. And so I feel like I was more on like closer in between Jay and Justin sort of thing. And Justin, I think sort of used our threat level, Madison, to sort of hide behind. And yes, he was part of the group, but he sort of was like far enough removed from us that he could work with Caleb and whoever else was sort of over there, but also work with us and work with Jay, who was sort of on the opposite side. So I think the thing that I want to know is what was intentional, like from all three of them, like what was intentional gameplay, what was intentional strategy, and what was just luck.
Right. Like I want to be the fly on the wall of their group of three. Like the one that existed with Rachel that Rachel wasn't in. I wish she was here to tell us a little bit about that like early game stuff with all of them, because I want to know like how much of that was calculated from the beginning of like, okay, here's what we're going to do. How much did Justin tell Caleb and Jay? Like, did they know about the hot potatoes? If so, for how long? Like, what was their plan there? Like, were they really genuinely running all of this the whole time? Or was Justin just playing in between and seeing which one looked better, like at the end of the day?
And like luck is not like something, I'm not discounting any of their game from luck, but like I want to know, like, was that intentional or was it luck? And if it was luck and you're trying to claim that it was intentional, like that's not gonna work.
You're gonna get
for me.
clocked.
You're gonna get clocked, period.
Yeah. But if it was intentional and you're trying to play it off as, oh, I just got lucky, it's like, no, you can't do that either because it was intentional. I want you to own that. I want you to claim that.
And I feel like Caleb is the one that I see getting trapped in that the most in trying like to claim like moves or claim intentional things, because I think Caleb's biggest strength in this game, I think, is going to end up being his biggest weakness if he makes it to the end, because the entire game, at least to me, he played up how like, oh, well, I'm just trying to like play dumb to people, and like I'm just going to play dumb and like see like how far it gets me because people don't think I'm going to win, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, but you've set up this this idea in all of our minds that you're not playing, you're just playing dumb. Like, and if that's actively been the strategy that you've been trying to play the entire time, and then you just luck out at the end and win some competitions, like, is that a winning game? Not necessarily. I'm not discrediting that it's a good game or a valid strategy to make it to the end, but is it a winning game?
Right. And I guess the question is it a winning game next to Justin, or is it a winning game next to Jay? Like,
I think I wanted to know where I was gonna speak on Caleb. If I guess we'll just start like maybe just do one person at a time, maybe, and then if it like fluid, whatever.
Yeah.
I think with him, I was gonna say that like he made safety circles a lot, and like at Final 3, like I think because if you can make moves by not winning HOH or POV by controlling the votes, I mean I think he definitely like was a swing at points. But like I think there were times where he could have won HOH, or when he could have made a move and been like, I did this, and still maybe like hunkered down into like burrowing back down into under the radar game where maybe Jay and Justin were able to do that.
Yeah. I just see Jay and Justin's game more, and I don't want to like discredit Caleb. Like, Caleb, if you're watching this eventually, like, I love you, and I'm not discrediting your game. It wasn't as visible to me, and what was not as impressive, because Jay's game also was not very visible to me, but in a way that I'm more impressed by because it felt more intentional and it felt more strategic. And what I think is interesting, like, Jay and Justin, I feel like are both kind of like comparable on like a physical and strategic level, and also comparable on a social level, whereas I feel like Caleb didn't have the strategic and physical game, but his social game was so much better.
I'm interested from Caleb because like we had both talked, because obviously like him and I were the last two people to win a competition this season, and I sort of expressed my frustration to him of like, I've been trying really hard all season to win a competition. Like I had through 0 competitions this whole season, and it frustrated me so much that I couldn't win a competition. And so if he sort of relayed the same sentiment of like, oh yeah, I wish I could just win a competition, but all of these strong competitors. And so like, if I come to find out that he's like, oh, like I did intentionally throw those competitions, like,
which he did.
He did.
Okay, well, that sort of bothers me because I genuinely was like frustrated because I couldn't win a single competition. And like, okay, so Caleb, and like, that's why I was frustrated, because I knew coming into a jury questioning that was going to be something that like people pegged me on was, well, you didn't win a competition this whole season, so why should we vote for you to win when you didn't make any moves? And I'm like, I was trying. And so if he had the opportunity to win head of household and take people out and make moves and claim his stake in this game and chose not to, I don't know that I really respect that as a game strategy, especially for me as somebody who really wanted to win and make moves and do that sort of thing. So that just kind of frustrates me a little bit.
No, same. I get it early game. For me, like I threw 2 comps this season and they were both very early on. It was the like physical one up against the wall, like the handstand one to Billy, and then the one to Grace that she won. But like I get it early on. And Caleb and I both talked about the fact, because like Caleb and I talked about the fact that we threw it to Billy, like the handstand one and stuff. And like I get it at that point, but when it gets like once you hit jury, I feel like, and I think it definitely happened in this game where everybody stepped up their game. Everybody that was throwing competitions pre-jury stopped. Everything that like all of the like kind of under the radar stuff that was going on, like people realized that they had to step it up because people were going to play harder, and that's what happened. Like we saw like Nolan really did that.
Okay. I was the Josh in my season.
Period. But like, I don't know.
Yeah, that does frustrate me, and that sort of makes me question a lot of what Caleb did this season. Then it's like, if you really were trying to play hard, like, why did you choose that strategy out of all of the strategies? Like, I get you are a very social person. Like, I'm a very social person too, and I was really relying on my social game this season. Like, that was my main like mode of strategizing, was because I had to, because I wasn't winning competitions, so I had to try to amp up other areas of my game. Whereas it's like, if you could have been winning competitions, why weren't you? Because
Right.
like, it's like, did you just not want a target on your back? But at that point, even if you did win, you still had bigger threats. Like, I don't think Caleb, even if he had one head of household at final 10 or final 9 or whatever, I still don't think that would have skyrocketed him into being the biggest threat in the game. Like, I think people
Yeah.
would have, I think he would have been able to win a head of household, get his target out, and then jump back under the radar.
See,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people talked about his game, or like kind of like mid game, as like Caleb's either going to float to the end, or Caleb's going to kick it up and like win some shit and like have played this amazing under the radar game that carried him to the end, and he's gonna win like Yunnan. That's always been my thought process for Caleb this game. Like, I've said it in my prod chat the whole time, because like, but I think the difference is like, he didn't really do that. Like, yes, he won a veto and closed the box. Like, yes, he won this, and like, but he didn't do anything with the comps that he has won, even like in the end. And like, the comps that he won, like, he didn't go for the HOHs, he didn't go for that stuff, and kind of obviously didn't go for it too. Like, Caleb's game got more obviously fake as it progressed. I think like it got much easier to tell that he was just like bullshitting everybody, and that didn't necessarily sit well with me at the end, considering I think a lot of us were being as genuine as we could. So like, I don't know. I love Caleb, but
Yeah, it just doesn't make me feel as strongly about his game. And like, one thing that we had talked about was that we had the conversation of floating versus coasting, and he's like, I feel like I've been floating and not coasting. And so that sort of makes me think like, yes, some of the things he was doing was intentional, because he was intentionally trying to float in between power and make sure that he was safe, as opposed to just sitting there and letting people, like, he was not coasting. So I get, and that's maybe what I would like to hear from him a bit more about, like, what kind of things did he actively do to be a floater as opposed to a coaster.
Well, and that's also something that I've heard like a lot, like from like, I talked to Seb right after I got added and stuff, and like, I know Seb had mentioned like Caleb never talked game with him, like, ever at any point in the game. And like, obviously that's just one person, but Caleb was also just very like, not, he was never forthcoming with strategy. He was never the one to propose the idea. He would say, hey, I heard it from this person, like, who had already talked to me about it, or would let me come up with the idea and then go run with it. So like,
Right.
that's valid in some ways, because he's there and I'm not, so he can take credit for that at the end of the day, I guess. But like, I don't know. It just doesn't, I don't see him being the one that has pushed his game forward as much as the people he surrounded himself with, which is notable. But again, I don't know that it's winning to me. I would love to hear what he has to say to defend it later on, though.
So, do we want to move on to?
What do you mean by the Billy vote, Nolan?
So, for people that are watching, Nolan said, my roommate came back, oops. My biggest question for Caleb is about the Billy vote. And then why was he always a
I mean, I don't, as far as I know from the conversations I had with Caleb, he was pretty much on the evict Billy side like the whole time.
Yeah, so Caleb ran to me very quickly. See, once Billy went up, I was hoping that there would be a move to get Billy out, but I wasn't sure if Caleb would be okay with it. And then Caleb ran to me immediately and was like, hey, I think we need to vote Billy here. So I feel like that was always part of his plan. I think he knew that him with Billy put a target on his back.
And that's something that I had talked about with him, was like, people were pinning him as being somebody who was close with Billy. And like, as soon as the noms were set, basically, like, him and I called and I said, like people are telling me that you're super close to Billy, and like we sort of had a really genuine conversation about how he wanted to work with me, and like he didn't want to be tied down to Billy and some of this other stuff. And so like I think that sort of was the start of our like more game relationship, you know, going towards the end. But he fairly quickly came and was like, yeah, I want to vote out Billy.
Nolan, Jay told me about this in the game, like after you were evicted a little bit, because Jay also didn't really understand that to my knowledge. So I'm also interested to hear about that. Because if they were all three working together, why weren't they all three in on that plan? Like
Maybe
whatever.
they weren't working, all three of them at that point together. Like,
But apparently their group of three was formed on like day 1 or 2, which is, or at least that was the
okay.
excuse that Justin gave me for why he was evicting me and being more loyal to Caleb and Jay, was because Hot
Right,
Potatoes was
okay,
formed
okay.
after.
I didn't realize that.
I didn't either, but
It's okay. And we should have won the competitions. That's all I'm saying.
so close. We were
fine.
both so close.
I think something that, and this is sort of a transition to Justin. I think that something that I'm going to ask Justin about is because at the final five, we were talking and he sort of was exposing Madison. And I was like, he told me, and he probably ended up throwing the veto competition, but he said to me that if he won the veto, he was going to take me off the block at the final five. And so I'm, I guess, interested, if he was so close to Jay and Caleb, would he have actually pulled me off the block and put Caleb on the block, knowing, I mean, you probably still would have gone home
Mm-hmm.
because I would have voted to keep you, and Justin probably would have voted to evict you.
Yeah.
And then Jay would have broken the
Jay would
tie.
have
But I'm
broken it,
like,
yeah.
why say that if you were just gonna throw the veto and like not, you know, like why put that out there if that was
Mhm.
never your intention? Because if
Yeah.
you were just gonna throw the veto anyways, why not just be like, well, we'll see what happens with the veto and then we'll talk afterwards. And like I did ask him, like, well, I was in the process of being like asking him what he would do, and he sort of was like, I would use it on you 100%. So that just makes me wonder a little bit.
Yeah. Justin and I called right before eviction, like right before I called you, right before
Yeah.
eviction, Josh, and like I spilled like all his remaining tea and stuff. And like I know he was trying to butter me up, and he like told me about like his interactions with all of the like jurors, I think probably so that I could like come and like be like, oh well, Justin told me it was like he didn't mean to do that, which like I'm not gonna do. He can defend his own game, but like I am very, very impressed with Justin and very like proud of him, having watched him play
Mhm.
before and like hosted him in Big Brother and watched him struggle, and what like I know that this means a lot to him. And
Sorry, there's a question I want to ask just that you're kind of like talking about. So I want to ask it now. Does past performance in this series matter to you when you are casting your vote based on either somebody doing very poorly in their past season and doing very well here, or the opposite, doing very well before and then once again being able to do that again here? Does that have any effect on your vote at all?
no, not for me. For me,
Not-
I appreciate the
obviously that's different.
storyline. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I was just gonna say I appreciate like the storyline of a game. I want like for me, I appreciate when a winner or the person that I'm voting for, their game tells a story from beginning to end. Like they had a goal, there was a plot. But I don't think that like their past games and experiences like need to factor into that.
Not necessarily other games, but I think at first I was like, no, it doesn't. But I think when you look at this game, this
If it was a
season
second
as a
chance
whole,
season,
it's a second
that's why.
chance season. So I think
That's why
you
I
do
asked
kind of
that.
have to consider, for me, I think you have to consider what happened the first time, because this is a second chance season. So the whole point of this season was rewriting the stars from the first time. And I think so, at least with Justin, I feel like you almost have to consider his previous game in terms of in 1984. Like it doesn't, his other Big Brother, his other games, like doesn't matter. But in terms of just his last season of 1984, I think a lot of the things that he did, and he stated that a lot of the things he did this season were because of mistakes he made last time or things that happened to him last time. So I think like for all of them, I think Um,
I'll read what Nolan said. He said
yeah,
Caleb sort of thinks that he had a big target on his back because of his fourth place finish. So maybe he did aim to play a bit under the radar because of that.
That makes sense. I see that.
I mean, I do see that. I don't think Caleb had a big target on his back coming into the season at all. And I think he was just trying to lean into that. Like I think he knew he didn't have a big target on his back coming into the season. I think maybe initially he might have thought that because he was a fourth place finisher. But I'm sure once he saw the cast, I'm sure he was like, nobody's going to come after me early in this season.
Right. Well, and also I think even if he did think that early on in the season, there comes a point like halfway through, you get to jury phase, you realize like either you have a read on the game or you don't. And if you if he had an appropriate read on the game, hi Seb, if he had an appropriate read on the game, like I feel like he would know like, okay, my threat level has minimized. Like I've managed to like stay under the radar long enough. I can do something now. And I didn't see that.
I'll just catch you up right now. The question I posed was, does past season performance in 1984 specifically have any effect on your vote because of it being a second chance season based on whether somebody did poorly in their first season and now is able to be successful, or if they were successful before and were able to replicate that again? So that's kind of the question I posed because Madison had said something similar.
Do you want me to go or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, like
you don't have to. We're just kind of.
I mean, it definitely had. I don't think it has an effect on my vote. It show. I think it's like, it definitely shows like how they've changed, not just like in like the community, like or like, but like I mean, not just in 1984, but like in the community in general. I mean, Justin came into this game like never voting in a Big Brother game. Now he's at the final three. Like. Jay has placed around 7th, 6th place in a lot of Big Brother games, as he was telling me in the game. Like, Caleb, this is like usual for Caleb from what he was telling me. Like, he usually makes it to like final 5, final 4, final 3. Like, I think that like, I think it's most impressive if we're going off that. Like with Justin, obviously he was second boot in his season to make it to final 3. It's like it's like really impressive. And he was able to like take the mistakes that he's had in the past few past few Big Brother games he's played and take him to his advantage. I also feel like Justin's playing a lot. I feel like Justin is playing this game a little more like Survivor, and hence that's the reason why he's made it a little further, because Justin is statistically better at Survivor. And I think he's used those skills to get him to the place he's at right now at the final 3. So
yeah, I agree. Caleb or Nolan, I think Caleb is also playing. Sorry, I read Caleb and then was trying to respond to you and just said what I was reading. I agree. I think Caleb like definitely sort of played more of a Survivor style game, just in terms of he was mainly focusing on his social game. But I think something that I just was thinking of about Justin is like, he's, they had this 4-person chat from day one, but on day one as well, like very early on, Justin and I had a one-on-one conversation, and we basically said like, we're the second boot besties, like we're gonna have each other's backs in this game. So like, even if that group was formed early, like was like, where was that conversation in terms of the timeline? Because ultimately he didn't choose to stick with me, even if we had that like day one conversation. And it wasn't like, we pretty much had an official agreement, like we're going to have each other's backs as, to the end of this game, because we both were second boot last time. So I'm like, again, the same sort of thing. Like I said before, like, I'm just questioning, like, why was that necessary? Like with his veto comment of he told me if he had one veto at final 5, that he was going to take me off the block, and so I'm just questioning the validity of that statement of like, was that something you were actually going to do, or were you just telling me that? And it's like, okay, well, even going back all the way to like day one, was that something that you were loyal to, or was that just something you were telling me because we knew each other going into the season?
Well, that's kind of how I feel about like Caleb and Justin, kind of both. Because when Josh, when you and I first went up on the block, everybody was telling me I was safe, which like I thought was bullshit and like should have been bullshit. Like I needed to go there. That was the right move.
Mhm.
But it was so weird
Well,
that like everybody was like, "Oh no, like Josh is gonna go. Like I'm gonna keep you. Like well, I'll use veto on you. I'll keep you. I'll do this." I was like,
yeah.
well,
Caleb did tell me that when I first went on the block, he was like, "Oh, I was 100% evicting you," and then I guess he was like, "I had to think about it," and then changed his mind. But I sort of with the POV with Justin saying he's using it on me. I think I'm trying to remember exactly how the conversation went. We just were talking about it, and I kind of was like, like one of us has to win the veto, sort of like I don't remember what the exact conversation was, but I'm pretty sure I didn't ask him. I was sort of leading up to asking him what he would do, and he was like, "Yeah, I would use it on you 100%." So I didn't really be like, "Hey, would you use it on me?" I sort of was like, kind of trying to lead him in the direction of like, "What would you do?" And I was like, I mean, I've said this to a whole bunch of people a bunch of times. I'm like, "It's your game. You do what you want with the power. Like, I'm not gonna like force you to use this. I'm not gonna try to convince you." Um, right. Yeah, I agree. There is a difference between him. I don't think that I prompted him to say that. I feel like he said that before I really got the chance to prompt him to use the veto on me. But I can't clearly recall. But that's sort of the feeling that I remember having was like, yeah.
I'm going to just read what Nolan said just for context. And Nolan said, Josh, did you ask Justin if he would use the POV on you before POV, or did he bring it up to you first? Because like, in my opinion, there is a difference between someone like instantly telling you that they'd POV you rather than someone asking. Yeah. And then because like saying it beforehand and then throwing it intentionally was just unnecessary in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
One of the contexts.
And I don't know if he threw it intentionally. Like that's part of, I think, if he makes it there is going to be part of my questioning is like, was what you were saying to me genuine, or were you just saying it to me to keep me happy?
Yeah, I can definitely say like I feel like a lot of the most of the things that Justin said to me personally was to make me feel happy in the game, because like the round I left, and this is a thing, is that like I'm not bitter about it because I'm going in with an open mind, but like I was just super frustrated with Justin specifically when I left the game, because the night of the power of veto ceremony, he had come to me and said like, I don't know which way I'm voting, I don't know where I'm like leading. And then I heard from multiple different people that round that he already promised Chloe he was voting me out, and like he did this, that, and the other thing. And when I confronted him about it, he told me like 3 different things. It was like, oh, I didn't like, I love you on a personal level, I didn't want to make you upset. Like, oh, like I was with hot girl Chris, I didn't want to ruin that moment. Like I didn't want to, like, it was just all these other excuses. And I was like, Justin, like, just be blunt with me. Like, that's all I wanted in this game. He's like, yeah, and I was like, because you're either lying to me or you're lying to everyone in the Zoom call. And he was like, well, I lied to you. Like, I was not evicting Chloe. And I was like, then you tell me that. Like, I think a lot of Justin's game has just been floating and being able to be good with the HOH that is with that round. He's had a few hiccups, but like, I just think like most of his game has been floating. Like week 1, like if Justin made that group with Jay, Caleb, and Rachel, and then also made that one-on-one with Josh. He also like, there was a group made of me, Chloe, Peyton, and Justin that round. Like, it's just Justin had everyone basically like with him at a point, because of the different alliances and the different groups that he's either inserted himself into or made himself. Like he did well. Like I feel like the other 2 like were good socially, but like also like a lot of their social came from downplaying their threat level, like especially like Caleb acting dumb, Jay acting like he wasn't a threat competition wise. Like it was just like, and where their social gameplay comes from downplaying their actual strategy. Justin literally was with a group, like, or at least two groups throughout the whole game, up in like even at final five, like Justin was in the middle between his group with Jay and Caleb and with Josh and Madison. It's like Justin was in a pretty good spot. And like, I hate to admit it, like Rachel was correct. Like the minute he left the block, when she left, like he went right back under the radar, and now he's at the final three. Like I think
No, and I mentioned that like still in the game. Like once like all of that started happening, I was like, well, Justin did it. Justin did exactly what everybody said he was gonna do, and now Josh and I are gonna get knocked out back to back because of it. And like I respect it. Like at the end of the day, like I can't be mad because we all knew it and we let it happen.
I'm upset the way he treated me, but like at the end of the day, like that's the move he had to make, was to go with the house when I left. Like
Nolan, I think that is a really good point, that like Justin did not campaign for himself that round. Everyone else that wanted Rachel out campaigned for him.
Nolan said, I think he was in a good spot, but like he didn't survive the block because he campaigned better than Rachel. He stayed because other people campaigned better for him.
I definitely agree. Both times that Justin was on the block, people were campaigning for the other person to go, not for him to stay. Like when Jerry was on the block with him and Jonah kept saying like, Jerry is the pawn. We need the pawn that's going to get Justin out. Like everyone saw that and was like, we have to get Jerry out. Like the people who like it, well, with Jerry's round, it was a mix of like people wanting Jerry out and then Jerry telling everyone one like different things and all this other stuff. But like with the Rachel round, it was just people wanted Rachel out, so people pushed for Rachel. It wasn't just like literally the round with Jerry. It was Justin's birthday. He was hanging out with his friends. He did not campaign to me at all. Mm-hmm. Like the round.
No, me, Josh, and Rachel made that move.
Exactly.
Yes,
like
we did.
Exactly like that. It wasn't Justin who saved himself. It was other people who saved Justin.
But again, like Justin put himself in a position to not be a threat over every single person he was up against, and to have people in his corner that would be willing to fight for him. And that's like,
for me, what stands out is the round that Rachel left, because Madison and I put in work to keep Rachel in the game. We hustled so hard, and we had the votes at one point, and then like that, they were back on Rachel and she was gone. It happened so fast. And like the fact that people were willing to do that for Justin over Rachel, when like, yes, Rachel's a big threat, but Rachel also has people who will fight tooth and nail for her to stay at the same time. So it's like, it's again, I think it comes back to the intentionalness of, that's not even a word, but the intentionality behind, was Justin setting himself up in that position, like,
right, like was that because I could see that being the group of like Jay, Caleb, and Justin. Like if that really was that group and they were a good three and they were like, okay, well, we want to keep Justin over Rachel here. Like, was that really Caleb trying to like play us, thinking that we had him and Billy and Connor, and then Caleb was the one that really like flipped Billy and Connor back? Like, what is that what happened?
So what I was told is that Billy was saving Rachel no matter what happened during the round. So when Billy came into the jury, he was like, yeah, I lied to most people. I kept a face on that I was going to evict Rachel, and I just never did it. And I was like, okay, whatever. But
I was surprised to learn that Billy was the third vote to keep Rachel with me.
I was too, but he also like made it this big thing, like, oh, I pinned it on Madison. Like no one thought it was Madison. No one thought it was Madison. No one thought it was Madison.
Madison said to me was, yeah, I evicted Rachel. And I was like, that's fine.
My thing is that no one thought it was Madison. We just didn't know who it was besides Madison. Like,
honestly, if anything, Billy made sure that people knew it wasn't me. And I was so grateful.
No, he like came into the jury. He was like, yeah, like I left the house and people are still thinking it's Madison who voted for Rachel. And I was like, and also, yeah, Nolan, I was fighting for Rachel to go. Thank you very much. I just emotional, you know, I've already mentioned that. But no, like I was saying, like, I feel like, but in my opinion, like Justin was good socially, but like up until I wholeheartedly, I'm gonna ask Caleb when we get to if Caleb makes the end. Like,
So it's the way that Michael's gonna take so many pictures of me chowing down on the cereal.
Yeah.
but like I was saying, like that's a question I
Josh, you are not muted there.
I know, I realized that halfway through, but it's fine.
my question for Caleb is gonna be like, was he legit about voting Justin out? Because he was like wholeheartedly about to vote Justin out before before Caleb found out that the stuff he was learning about Justin was a lie. So I believe, like that's what I believe. Again, they were super close. So like Caleb could have been just playing this I'm dumb, I'm stupid, like I don't know what I'm doing. This game is emotional card. Like, but at the same time, it did seem super genuine that he was going to vote out Justin because he was hurt by the stuff he learned. So it's like so weird to say that like at final 11 was where a lot of the impact of the game was going, because like that's where like Caleb flipped, like Caleb was like doing one thing, Jay was doing another thing. Like
Nolan says the thing with Caleb is he was so wishy-washy with like almost every single decision in the game. It makes it harder for me to believe what he says during his
I definitely
He was always so agreeable, like always agreeable to everything. And like if you agree to everything when you make it to the end, like we're all going to be able to sit here and like say like, well, no, because you told me this, and no, you told me this, and like I'm interested to see how that works.
It's something I've mentioned in the jury multiple times. It's that Caleb, every conversation I had with Caleb was an emotional conversation. It was always like, how are you doing on a personal level? And I'd be like, oh, I'm doing great. Can we get to game talk? And it's like, yeah, I just want you to know, Seb, that I care about you like on a personal level, that everything that I'm telling you is like on a personal. And I'm like, that's great. Can we like get to game conversation? And it's like, I never got to that point with Caleb. That's why like when like people were entering the jury and they're like, Caleb is smarter than you think, I just never saw it because he never showed me. Like, and I agree with Nolan, because he said it's one thing to note, or like one thing to note is that people could totally blow smoke up our asses in the final two. Like Caleb always started our like the very small game conversation about the vote would always be like, yeah, I'm in the middle, I'm on the fence. And that pissed me off, not only just with him, but like a lot of people this season. It was just like everyone was, especially Caleb, was always just on the fence. Like he never was, like he knew what he was doing, like he knew how he wanted to vote, but it was always, I'm on the fence, I don't know, this is a hard vote for me. Like
Yeah, I think one thing for me, like a couple things, is like with what you said, Billy, is like up until the round that Billy went home, like Caleb and I never talked strategy, really. Like we would have personal conversations, we would have emotional conversations, like you said. But until that round, he came to me and I said, Caleb, like I'm worried because everybody's saying that you're so close to Billy, like that you're going to evict me, even though we have this great personal relationship. And that's when we really started to talk strategy. And so up to before then, I really feel like the same boat that you were in. No, I still stand behind the decision, Nolan, to evict Peyton. But and then something that Caleb would constantly mention to me when we were talking is he's like, oh my goodness, like everybody thinks that I'm such an emotional player. Like everybody thinks that like, all of these things. And he was sounding like it was a negative thing. And I'm like, okay, so what are you doing to change that perception? Like
Nothing.
If he really wanted people to think that he was like, if he really wants to come out and be like, I was smarter than everybody thought I was, then why were you complaining to me that that's what the perception of people was about you? If that's the perception you wanted them to have, why are you frustrated by the fact that people are having the perception of you that you're trying to get them to have?
Like I get it, like you go into a game, like if Caleb's perspective really was to like play dumb and everything, that's a good strategy. But at some point you have to show people that you're smarter than you actually are. And I just never saw that with Caleb. Like Caleb, I just always saw like this dumb, like emotional person. And it wasn't like I love Caleb, it like wasn't dumb on a person. Like he would be like, it was just always like dumb on a game level. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, oh, orgs are stressful, this is why I took a break. Like, and like that stuff feels genuine in the game, but also like when you get to the final two and I'm like trying to like compare notes with everyone, it's like I just never saw that. Like
Yeah, I definitely like agree that I think let's see what Nolan said.
Oh, I definitely agree with that, Nolan. Like,
Nolan said, I do think he did have the strategic options to make up his own mind, but the whole emotional portrayal was very annoying to deal with.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're going to have that strategic mind, if you're gonna be decisive, be decisive. Like if you know what you're doing and like you know in your mind, like just be decisive. Don't be wishy-washy about it, because that's not necessarily something that will garner you a lot of respect.
yeah, like I think like at some point, like the only people I've heard like really like be like Caleb is this smart strategic player that he's not showing is the first juror and the third juror. Like if I'm not hearing it from anyone else, then it's gonna be hard for me at the end to be like, yeah, I believe everything you're saying at the end. Like, because like I feel like the only person I've really got to see like their full game because they didn't like bullshit it with me was Jay. Because like at a point where like I wasn't working with Jay all game, but there was a point in the game where like me and Jay were like, hey, like last game we played, we didn't talk to each other. I want to like change that. We would like try to at least have a conversation. Like and I agree with Nolan. Nolan said I think on paper Jay definitely played the best game because on paper Jay did. Like he made it to this point with no votes to his name. Like if he makes it to the end, he was only a final nom once all season, no votes to his name against the person the person in Connor who had been sitting on the block multiple times in a row. So it's impressive on paper, but I also like I don't think Jay's like management of people leaving was the best. Hearing from like Rachel, Billy, and like even like I think it was Chloe who was telling me like people like he just doesn't he didn't really like do the best even with me who like someone who like I considered one of my closer allies. Like he was like, I'm sorry I couldn't do anything to help you campaign, and that was all he told me before he said he was going to vote me out. And I was
Yeah.
like okay, that doesn't feel great. But
My perspective of Jay's game is a little bit different just because um I basically was working with him from day one, because on the night one call, Jerry, Jay, and I were the last three on the house call, and we just jokingly were like, oh, we're the last three, like we should work together. And then we started looking at each other and we're like, no, but wait, no, we should work together. And so we formed an alliance that Jerry named the Jantasy. And like but the thing is after the first few weeks, like I just felt Jay would only talk to me when the vote was coming.
yeah,
It was like, okay, yes, we're in an alliance, but okay, now it's time to strategize. And the rest of the time it was like a message here, a message there, a message here, a message there. And it wasn't really anything solid or actually like personable. It just was like, hey, how are you? I'm at work. How are you?
Yep.
Oh, I'm at work. I'm like,
Hey, can we talk
I
after
get you're
work?
busy with
Sure.
work, Jay, but I want to know more about your life than work. Like, so
I
I just
definitely
felt
agree
like I
with that.
had more genuine conversations with Caleb and with Justin than I did with Jay. And I almost felt more like Jay would only talk to me when he needed something from me, which doesn't make me feel the greatest. But I do think he was playing a very smart game. Like I think he was very, very smart about the way that he was going about things.
I think Jay was a lot better with hiding the people he was working with because, like I said, like I didn't know that you and Jay were working together until the final four when he evicted you. You're like the Janissy, whatever. Like he had groups with, I think, same thing with like, I think Justin and Jay like had groups with the majority of the people in the house. Like I know me and Nolan had the 3-man band with me, him, and Jay. Like, it was like Jay, I just think that Jay hit it a lot better. Like whereas like Justin was a lot more open. Like the minute I left, I was like Justin, Madison, and Josh are working together. Like the minute I left, I was like, okay, those are the people that like Nolan and Chloe and like Jay have to watch for. And then turns out Jay had alliances with like people I also told him to watch out for. I was like, okay, like Yeah, I agree with that. Like, and I
Yeah.
think
I think Justin's game was more obvious. Jay's game was
on
like more under the radar. And see, that's the thing. Like between Jay and Justin, if those two are the final two, my decision is going to be a lot harder, I think. Not that I'm like discrediting Caleb beforehand. I just think like those two games against each other is a tougher battle, and honestly one that I would prefer to see. And I want to see them like fight it out, especially like I don't know. It so much depends on how much of their games were genuine. And I feel like just based off the perception that I had within the game, I know that Justin's was more genuine, like because I was more hands-on with Justin's game, but like it's completely up in the air with Jay. Whereas like I know that Caleb's was significantly more disingenuous than either of the other two.
And I think sorry, go Sam.
I was gonna say, like, if I could guarantee that what Caleb would say at the end was all the truth, I'd be like, great, that gives me a reason to vote. But once again, I think he's gonna start playing this like I really loved everyone in the game, like everyone that I played with have a special place in my heart. It's the same thing he said every elimination, every power veto, every HOH, every
Which may be true
but
on a personal level.
On a personal level, but on
Yeah.
a game level, like you have to make those choices. And it feels
Yeah.
like I can't look at a single point in this game where Caleb made a choice that did something. Like Caleb made a decision and did something with it that impacted this game. Where? Like Billy, maybe. The Billy vote, maybe.
The only thing I could even think of is maybe like the Rachel vote, because like you said, like you two had the votes for Rachel to stay,
Well,
and
we
then
thought we
last
had the
minute.
votes.
Or did we? Or was that just them
That-
bullshitting us the whole time?
That is true. Like,
Yeah, and that's the thing. Caleb was always making safety deals. Like there was a round where Caleb, and that's the thing, Josh, when you were talking about him throwing competitions, like Caleb was sitting there, like he would sit there with me on call before every HOH competition and be like, "Oh my God, we have to win! Like one of us has to win this. Like I'm gonna go so hard for this competition."
oh, he did that
And
to
then-
me too.
Yeah, no, he did it to everybody. I learned that
Didn't do
one
it to
pretty
me.
quick.
So
Yeah, but like he'd sit there, oh, I'm gonna try so hard, and then like it would get to like the last 6 people in the competition, and he's
He'd be
like, safety circle,
safety
safety
circle.
circle, and I'm like, I just yeah, the period, Nolan.
No,
Nolan
literally,
said,
like,
don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining
well, it
for
was
the
like,
viewers.
what comp was it that there was like it was the comp that you had to put the cups on the wall, and like
Yeah.
2 people dropped, and Caleb said safety circle. I remember
Safety
that.
circle, yeah.
he did.
I was like, I was like one of 2 people who dropped. Like, where does that leave me at all? Like,
Mm.
and I was like Caleb would have these personal conversations with me and end it with, "Okay, bestie, we have to win next HOH, so we
Mhm.
can be
Right.
both safe." And I was like, and it was like Caleb was literally the only person I probably would have like definitely nommed in if I had won HOH, because like the fact that he was so disingenuous with me on a game level. It was always just, "Hey bestie, like hope you're doing well." And I appreciate that on a personal level. Like I love Caleb to death, but like
Yeah.
I need game. Like I'm
Mhm.
like low key a game bot. Like I need game.
No,
to
like
get-
I love the personal conversations, and I loved getting to have those personal conversations with every single one of you. But at the end of the day, we are playing a game, and like when the
Mhm.
end goal eventually is to vote for someone to win, like you got to play a
Well,
game to win the game.
Nolan said, as a juror, it is so much easier to vote for someone that's obviously not on your side rather than someone who tells you they're on your side the whole time when they're really not.
Mm-hmm.
That's very true. And for me, I think I was gonna come back to this with Justin. Like you said, Seb, like it's hard because like Caleb is gonna come out and feel very disingenuous.
You guess.
I guess. But like for me, it's like I feel like I feel like you guys are all feeling like, oh well, you can trust like what Jay's saying and what Justin's saying, but you can't trust what Caleb's saying. But for me, it's like I don't know if I can trust what Justin's saying based on the end game experience that I had with him. And so I guess that speaks to what Nolan's saying. It's like I want to vote for Justin, but I don't know if what he was doing was genuine with me or not.
If
You know
we're
what I
going,
mean?
yeah,
So-
if we're going off the person who's lied to me the most in this game, and that's the logic we're going off, I would not believe anything Justin says at the end,
Mhm.
because especially especially in the round that I left, it was just all lies up until the end. and Madison's doing that nose thing, so I want to hear what she's saying.
I agree. I agree in principle, but in a way, like in evaluating like a winning game, Justin, every time that Justin lied, he had a reason, and he explained most of the reasons for a lot of the lies he told me before I left the game, and put in the initiative to do that. And like that's something, like I get it, like I play a snaky rat, whatever game a lot, and like I think it's valid if you handle it well. And I think Justin, for being as snaky as he's being, is playing it really, really well.
Okay, but my thing is this, and I just want to know, like, Nolan, Josh, did Justin do that with you before you guys left? I know, Josh, you didn't have a lot of.
To be fair, Justin did not have any time to do that.
That's what I was gonna say, but like
he could have done it with me once Madison was gone. Once we called and he told me that he was keeping me 100% and that Madison was going, and like he could have taken that opportunity to spill a lot of his secrets, and he didn't. And I get why he didn't, because like we weren't sure if we were even doing the entire Final Four round at that point. So it's like I get why he didn't, but he could have given me a goodbye message. Like that's the one thing, is like none of the final three messaged me anything after I left. Like they could have had the opportunity, because it happened so fast, to just send me a message of like, I'm so sorry that you had to go. Like I was working with Caleb and Justin the whole time, or I was working with Justin and Caleb and Jay the whole time. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there was enough time once I was gone to sort of give me that message of like, this is why this happened. Like, here are a few things you need to know before you get into the jury house. So I do feel a little bit like they just kind of dropped me like I was hot and forgot that I was even leaving, and didn't even bother to send me like any sort of goodbye message. But
and that's what I'm saying, because like I think, and this isn't like
dropping the hot potato.
Here's my thing, okay? And this is like, I think this comes from Justin on a personal level, because of the fact that every time, like, Madison and Justin have played so many games, and Justin gets so pissed when Madison cuts him. So I think that this was just a way of like him being like, hey, Madison, I know you've done it to me in the past. I'm going to be doing it to you. Like, here are the lies and why I did it. I don't think that he did that with everyone. I think he just did that with you. Like,
no, which is valid. But again, like if he can sit there at the end, but if he can sit there with me and like on a personal level and be able to do it, it means he's thinking about it with every single one of you. And the thing is, like, he mentioned you, Seb, in my conversation too. He knows what he's getting into. He mentioned everything that you mentioned to me. And so like he knows what he's getting into, and I think he'll be able to address that. Whether he does it well or not is up for debate, and like if he even makes it to the end, which like I really do hope that Justin gets a chance to argue, even if like it doesn't end well.
I mean, yeah, this would be Justin's first finale, so I'd be
It's not even on like a personal level like that. I just really want to see him like argue to win this game. Like I feel like this is the game for him to really have a chance to fight for, and I would like to see him have the chance to. But like, I don't know. Ugh.
I mean, Josh, how much info did you have about Justin and Caleb taking each other? Was that just something you said to kind of scare
that was
Jay?
Because Madison told me on the way out that they were they were really close, and I was just trying to use what Madison gave me on her way out the door to try to salvage any chance at Jay keeping me. So I was just throwing everything I had at the wall, whether it was true or not. I had no idea.
Well, I think on a game level too, like I think no offense to Caleb, and he can explain his game if he makes it when he makes it to the jury, or if he makes it to the jury. But I personally want to see like Jay and Justin. I think they had the two more compelling games to like compete against each other. Whereas like I feel like it's like we mentioned before, like I feel like Caleb's gonna get to the end, and it's either gonna feel like he's either gonna like own up everything or nothing at all. Like I don't see a middle for him. Like
I think
if he tries to pull like anything in the middle, we're all gonna clock him for it, and it's not gonna end well.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like if it's Justin and Caleb or Jay and Caleb, I will hear what Caleb has to say, but we'll probably vote for the other finalist ultimately, because I want to give him that chance. I want to give him that respect of hearing him out. But I don't know, unless he comes out with something like like mind-blowing about his own game, like unless he dropped the biggest bomb and explains it super well. Like obviously I'll vote for him, but I think it would be a lot harder of a decision if if Jay and Justin were in the game.
Nolan, this is T. Does somebody want to read Nolan's message?
Okay, so
He said, okay, if we're talking personal relationships, I think it's time for me to open up Pandora's box, considering I'm on call with 3 people that are considered to be what I'll call the excessive 8 that were rumored to be in an alliance. I'll just ask, do you think any of these people in the final 3 easily just worked with people they were close with outside of the game? And like between y'all, which alliances existed based off of pregame release?
okay, so I don't think any alliance specifically went off pregame, but I like, Justin and Rachel, I do believe like was very pre-gamed. Not like pre-gamed, but like they knew each other before the game. They've never actually like really got to work with each other. Like I feel like but that's the only like relationship I really like. Like for me, like yeah, I think me and Jerry were both part of that. Is that like an official name that I just didn't know about? Excessive 8? Oh,
I
is
think
that just a name
Nolan's
for like
personal name for
That's just
it.
a Nolan thing. That's
Okay,
a Nolanism.
so like for me, it was like I came into the game and when I saw Jerry, I really wanted to work with him because I've never done it before. Like we've attempted, but it's just never worked out. And like I told all 3 of you in this call, when I come into games with friends, I spend the first 3 rounds trying to see if we can work together in the game and see if it'll like mesh. But if it doesn't mesh, it doesn't work. If it works, it works. Like that's where I was like, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, like
Yeah.
I would
Right.
say like
Sorry.
I was just gonna say like my closest ally was Chloe, who was not in that excessive 8. Like my second closest ally was Nolan, who was not in that excessive 8. Like third closest was Jay, who technically was, but like Jay, I don't understand why Jay was grouped with those people.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Like
For
Jane,
me, sorry,
like-
I'll let you finish.
No, I was just gonna say like stop, Nolan.
Not that, Nolan.
But like I said, like there was a lot of people I just didn't understand why they were put in that 8, so I just didn't pay a lot of attention to it. But I
No,
do believe that like Rachel and Justin's personal relationship like did have an effect on their closeness. Like
Mhm.
I'll admit, like I always come into games trying to work with Madison. Like if it works out, it doesn't. Like, but like that's just like on a personal level. Like, but I'm also not like this is the alliance. We're going to the end. Like if it works,
Yeah,
it
no,
works.
I
If it
came
doesn't,
into
it
this
doesn't.
very wary of like Seb and of everybody that I knew. I was terrified coming into this. And like I ran to Jerry immediately and I ran to Justin immediately because I had just played and won room limit. Like I beat Jerry at the end and we came right into this season. So like we came very fresh off of that and off of those relationships, and Justin was really mad at me and then ultimately voted for me to win. It was just a weird dynamic. So like I ran to them immediately after cast reveal and I was like, jury deal. Like, so I definitely did make a couple, like, I guess you can call it like pregame, like deals or whatever, but that was more out of like self-preservation than like, hey, we're friends, let's work together.
No, like
that was my like, please don't kill me immediately. Like, let me get to jury.
Like I made that same deal with Jerry, Rachel, and Josh, I think. Because
kind of we just like
it
our
wasn't,
thing was
it
kind of
wasn't like
weird,
official. It wasn't official, but it was like there. I was like, I don't want to like kill you, Josh. Like that was my thing. Is that like, but I officially made deals with like, not edgy cast.
Edgy cast decisions.
I think
no,
for
I just
me-
think it was like for me, I wasn't really working with a lot of those people until we got pinned together, which is what happens a lot of times. I feel like in games when like a narrative starts getting created, eventually the other people outside of that are the people that are going after the big group, and then the big group has no choice but to protect each other. So like that's where I ended up. That's how I felt, because very early on, Billy and Caleb were like my number ones. I loved both of them. I wanted to go so far with both of them, and I'd never met either one coming into this.
Yeah,
so
I
like
think for me, like I definitely did not like.
Caleb's told everyone that, Nolan.
Except for Madison.
No, he finally told me.
Oh, period.
When it comes to like the big like pre-game relationships, like for me, I always come into the game and I'm the type of player that generally, if I see somebody I know, I'm going to gravitate towards them because I play based off connections that I have with people. Like I will find any connection to latch onto, and it doesn't have to be like a previous game connection. Like back in Prestige, like I got close with Michael because we connected over our personal real life experiences. Like we have similar backgrounds, and like there's a lot of other reasons. Like in a lot of the games, the people that I work with aren't people that I know going into the season. Like most of the games that I've played, my closest allies are people I did not meet until the season started. And so like I was trying to use, especially coming into this season, like for me, I was trying to use all of the connections that I had. I didn't have any, like with Seb, I didn't have an official alliance. With Rachel, I didn't have official alliance. With Madison, I didn't have official alliance. Like most of the people in that pre-made, I didn't have official alliances with it. I know well, we kind of did. We kind of did there for a minute, Nolan.
For like 5 seconds.
It was longer than that. We had some good chats like coming into the jury phase. But like for me and Madison, like we didn't become ride or die number ones until Rachel left. You know, like it was different. So I don't think for me the pre-existing relationships doesn't usually play a factor for me. I cannot speak to Justin, Caleb, or Jay because I'm not them, but I don't think that the narrative of the excessive 8 really was a driving force for me in this season. Like I tried to base my decisions off of what was happening inside the bubble of this season. And there happened to be some overlap. Yes, there did. But for me, it wasn't based on outside. It was inside the bubble of, you know.
Yeah, I feel like in fact the effect, what the fuck is it called? The effective 8, the excessive, what the 8. I think it actually brought a lot of people closer because of that. Like I think a lot of people were like, oh, they're gonna pin us together. Let's just do it. Like
Yeah,
I remember when Billy put me up, he told me he put me up because he believed I was close with Josh and Madison. And I was like, well, if they're just gonna assume that, I'm gonna make a group, like because I'm not gonna be like accused of not like working. I'm not going to be accused of working with people if I'm not working with them. And if they're up to working with me, I'm going to work with them. Like that was my attitude with things. Like,
yeah.
And like,
okay.
And
sorry, I was just going to say, I have to run because I have to do BB Disney nomination ceremony. Seb.
And I really hate to spoil it for y'all, but I also have to run because I'm doing BB Disney.
All right. Love y'all.
Love you, Josh. Love you, Nolan. Mwah.
We'll be back if y'all are still going.
Yeah.
This is going to be a fun conversation between Nolan, Stephen, and Josh.
Of course, Nolan.
I have not talked a lot about Jay specifically, so I don't know if we want to try to.
It's hard because we kind of did, but like at the same time, like I feel like Jay needs to explain a lot of his game because it was kind of under the radar, and I don't feel like as close as we were on an alliance level, like I don't think I saw a lot of what he was doing because he wasn't really super forthcoming with me about his strategy a lot of the time. Once we sort of hit the jury, like pre-jury, he was very forthcoming, very open with me about what, like we got on call and basically both of us immediately, once Jerry was on the block, even though we were in this 3-person alliance with Jerry, almost immediately both of us were like, we have to get Jerry out now. So like I saw some of his game, but once we sort of hit the jury phase, I feel like I didn't see a lot of his game at all. So I think I really need to hear from Jay kind of what he did. So yes, I do think
Nolan said it made him look really good, especially when he won HOH and took y'all out.
Yeah, I think he won. I think something that I can say about Jay's game is like he definitely won competitions when he needed to, like Final 5 HOH and Final 4 Veto. Like he definitely stepped up his game. I think when it came to the jury phase, like I mean, you look at the Final 6 HOH, like he, even though he knew he was safe with me, even though I didn't have to say it because of the Jantasy, like he still felt the need to stand up there with me that long. And like that's something I think I want to know from him of like, you knew you were good with me before I even had to say it because of the fantasy. Like we were locked in on that. So why did you feel the need to push it to an hour and a half of standing there with the solo cups and ping pong balls, like when you knew that you were safe? And I and I
Nolan
told
said-
him like I just wanted to win. Like I had never won an HOH comp. I never won a single comp. I'm like, I just want to win. And like I told him, I'm like, you're good. And he still decided to not drop. So I'm like, if Jay had won at final 6, like was I going on the block with Madison? What was happening? So I think for me, there's just a lot of unknowns when it comes to Jay's game, even though I felt like I was really close to him.
So Nolan said, and I think even though it's a Big Brother game, it kind of played out like a Survivor season almost, to where bigger threats went home early jury, and when new threats fell, they sort of fell. And then Nolan said that he has similar questions for the double when he went home. So Nolan said, if Jay or Caleb win, do they still take the shot at him?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for that question.
And he says, I mean, they're both people that have thrown comps this season.
I think what's more impressive to me when it comes to Jay throwing comps is he threw comps until he didn't need to throw comps anymore. And then he was really putting the effort in. Like with Caleb, he continued to not win, whereas Jay was like, okay, I'm going to throw comps. And now that it's final 7, final 6, final 5, final 4, I'm not going to throw these comps anymore because he knew he needed the comp wins to make it to the end, you know? Like he needed the comp wins to make his moves, to make his mark on the jury. So
And Nolan says it's the fact that Caleb actively had chances to win comps and threw them away.
yeah. Whereas Jay did and then decided to win when he needed to. So I think that's probably the biggest difference between Caleb and Jay's game for me.
Trying to think if I have any questions that I can. So no one said I get if you can make a safety deal, but then dropping as soon as you make it. And he would come in my DMs and be like, "I hope you're not mad. I threw."
I think like as much as we know about their games, I feel like there's still like a lot that is to be learned from whoever makes pardon me, whoever makes it to the final 2.
Do we think that winning the final head of household and taking out a certain person could be a winning move for anybody? Like, is there anybody specific that anybody needs to take out to get the win?
Right.
So Nolan says he thinks that it won't be a winning move, but it could be a losing move. So
I
what
think
the losing move would be? So Nolan says if Jay evicts Caleb, it'd be a losing move.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think for Caleb, like it'll be interesting to see if he wins final HOH. Like I think he's gonna throw it probably because he thinks both of them are gonna take him. But I think it'll be interesting to see like if Jay takes Caleb, Jay's probably winning. And same with Justin. If Justin takes Caleb, he's probably winning. So it'll be interesting to see if Justin or Jay take each other over Caleb, because then it's going to be a bit more of a fight, and that could be a losing move. Well, I think it will be a losing move if the person who wins final HOH, like if Justin wins final HOH, takes Jay, and then Jay wins, obviously that's a losing move for Justin, and vice versa. Like if Jay wins and takes Justin and Justin wins the game, like it's a losing move for Jay. But I think the winning move is taking Caleb to the end at this point. And obviously there's, we've only heard from 4 out of 8 of the current jurors. So like the other jurors could feel very differently than we do.
Do we
But-
think there's a specific person that Caleb needs to take to have a shot?
Personally, myself, I think if he takes Jay, he has a little better of a shot. But I don't really know. Oh, you're the opposite. See, there you go. Nolan is the opposite. So, yeah, again, I think it depends on every person. I think it depends. Caleb could come out and have a phenomenal performance at the finale and really convince people to vote for him. So it's for me, a lot of it I think is going to be decided in the moment. It's going to depend on how everybody performs.
So Nolan says another thing I want to weigh is who people took out during their HOH because they all played social games.
Well, I mean, that answer's quick for Caleb. Caleb didn't win HOA. So he didn't take anybody out, but Jay got. Who did Jay get out? Jonah? Okay.
I can't confirm with anything because, like, obviously.
And Madison, that's true. And Justin got Sam and Nolan and me. Yeah, no, I know. Final Four doesn't count. Jay got me out. Justin did not get me out. I don't know. I feel like Jonah was an interesting move because, like, he was somebody that I wanted out at that point. And so I feel like that was a good move for Jay. Like, I just felt like at that point of the season, yeah, I don't really understand it all either. Like, I wish Madison was here to explain that. But I feel like Jonah was somebody who was just starting to get like going, and I feel like if he had been given more opportunities, Jonah could have made a bigger mark on this season. But I feel like he got sniped. But you know. Well, yeah, that is also true.
Nolan says that Jonah fucked himself with his HOH.
He did. He really did. But I don't know. I think with the whole Jay Madison miscommunication, like we were on the house call and Rachel was there and I was there and Jay was there and there was one other person who I can't remember, and like we just started talking about it, and like Rachel or Madison was talking to me and Rachel, and we were sort of like communicating with each other, and we sort of were like, well, obviously, like, I think Jay thought Madison was coming after him, but Madison wasn't coming after him, and that was such a long time ago. I don't remember.
Nolan says he thinks that week changed the trajectory. Oh my gosh, I can't speak. Of the game Jay was trying to play.
Yeah, I hope Madison comes back and then we can ask her about that. But I don't know. Are you gonna read that?
Sorry. Nolan said, I mean, there's multiple sides, obviously, but like from my perspective, so yeah.
Yeah, I do agree that like all three of the finalists sort of played all of the sides that were there, which is very like hard to do considering that there wasn't like two succinct sides. Like it was very fluid.
I felt like after the final 11, I was like, okay, are you team Nolan or team not Nolan? Keyboard smash.
Yeah, that was an interesting. But then like you left, and then like things opened up more. Like I think there was very much like there was a few times, at least from my perspective, where it was like, okay, there were temporary sides, and then like somebody left or something happened, and then like things sort of switched up again. Like I feel like overall the game was very fluid.
So Nolan says, not that I'm the center of the fucking gravity, but just because like I don't know who was bullshitting me.
Right. Yeah. That was hard to know.
Like I knew Josh once.
I mean, I wasn't really, but then I unintentionally was. So do you know what? I was like, I legitimately was, and then a lot happened. That day was crazy, but I promise you, Nolan, when I told you that, I meant it. I didn't mean to bullshit you. I promise.
Nolan says, in quotes, I'm evicting Rachel, aged like milk, and then you leak the fact that I considered backdooring her, and then that caused the whole scene during the ceremony.
Okay, I didn't leak that. I didn't. I promise you, I was taken out of context. So, like, even Justin admitted that later. Like, I didn't tell him. I didn't know that you were actually 100% backdooring her, but it came up in conversation, and I was trying to like give an olive branch to Justin of like, you're gonna be safe. I don't know. It was messy, but it's fine. But I promise you, I didn't leave.
Nolan says we're all here for a reason. I don't know if I have really too many questions.
I don't know if I have anything more to add.
Is there any specific questions that you guys are wanting to be asked at the final or at the jury speeches or whatever that you want to discuss now?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think for me, like for Justin, it's asking him like, was our alliance like genuine? Would you actually have used the veto on me? Like, how genuine were you being with me, or were you just like using me the whole time? And then like for Caleb, I want to know like what was intentional. Like, you were frustrated about being perceived as the emotional player and all of this other stuff, and yet you had the opportunity to win competitions but threw them anyways, and then like you were mad at people for perceiving you the way that you wanted to be perceived. Yeah, and then I guess with Jay, it's like was there that intentionality behind, you threw comps, and like I guess just like putting together the strategy of like who are you actually close to, because I didn't feel that like as much as we were allies from the beginning, like I didn't really feel that connection of being day one allies with Jay throughout the season. So
Nolan said him being frustrated about being the emotional player, but then only talking about personal relationships is like someone telling you that they're fine.
that's true. That's very true.
If that makes sense.
It does make sense.
So this question just popped in my mind, so I'm gonna ask it. So typically, like in finals, people ask the question of what was your biggest move. So what do you think the biggest move for each of the final three was, or is it something that you are gonna want to ask them?
I mean, I don't really know, to be honest. Yeah, I think it's something that they're gonna have to tell us, because like I don't think. Yeah.
No one's such a hard question for each person. Like I cannot tell you.
I couldn't tell you what Caleb's biggest move was. I couldn't tell you what Jay's biggest move was. I couldn't tell you what Justin's biggest move was. Like,
Justin would maybe say taking me out. Is that one?
Actually, probably.
Jay maybe taking out Madison.
That would make sense. Sam.
I'm here. What are we talking about?
So the last question I posed was typically in finals, people ask what the finalists' biggest move was. So, do you guys see a biggest move for each of them, or is that a question you want to ask them, or something like that? And then the question I said before was like, is there any specific questions that you want to ask them that you want to discuss here? So that's kind of where we're at right now.
I mean, I have I have two questions I usually ask at the end of games. The first one is I stole it from Kennedy in Cardviver, where she goes, raise your hand. You can only raise it once, but raise it for the one person you think helped you get to this final two. And I think it's funny because some people will raise their hand for the person next to them, which just proves that they can only make it to the end with the person next to them. And then the other question I asked is loyalty more important to you, or is making deals more important to you? Because I think is depending on what they say in their opening and closing speeches, if it matches up to what they said in that question, then it makes things a lot easier for make my decision. Yes, I know we know one person's answer to that. I just want to see if they'll be honest with me and be open about it.
Do you want to share what that?
So Nolan said, well, we know one person's answer for that, and that would be Caleb. Where he would definitely pick deals because he would every 5 seconds it was safety deal.
Well, he should say
deals,
but is he going to?
He'll probably say loyalty because his final three made the final three. But I don't think so, because I think without all those deals he made, I have to ask, once you win Deal or No Deal, you just have to ask, do deals matter?
Yes, $1 million case winner.
Period.
Not to interrupt, but that was one of my favorite moments. And
oh my God, Brian Weber, how are you? Not ill. It's
Brian, you're about 8 seasons late, and you're not supposed to be Dirty Roundtable because you were
rude.
I was like, hey, I'm leaving the BB Disney call to go hop on the roundtable. Master was like, can you let me know if it's actually going? It's like, no.
So yeah. I'll let some talk.
Yeah. So the question Michael asked was, is there any questions that you're going to that you're already thinking about asking them at the end? And then at the end, a lot of people ask what their biggest move is. What do you think is the three people's biggest moves in the game?
We loved the confused look.
Wait, one more time.
Let's start with one question at a time, okay?
Yeah.
So at the end, people like to ask the finalist, what was their biggest move? What do you think was Justin, Jay, and Caleb's biggest moves?
Gotcha. Okay. Caleb's biggest move in my eyes.
All I was gonna say is that Nolan and Josh kind of just said that it's a hard question for each person and that they're not sure what the answer might be. So that's kind of hard.
I'm also not sure. I definitely don't know what they would say their answers would be. From my perception, Justin's biggest move would be, I don't know, just be honestly, I think Justin's biggest move is just being able to play the middle as long as he did and keep that balance and because I think playing the middle as well as he did for as long as he did and being able to have that literal split 2-2 with him in the middle, you have to knock pegs on either side basically every round and alternate back and forth and really play carefully. So the fact that he was able to do that, I don't know which vote would be most pivotal in that. Probably just being able to stay over Rachel and working that angle. Caleb, I think maybe going after Billy could be his biggest move. If he can even claim that. And then Jay, I mean, Jay got me out and kind of Josh too. So like, and it, like from what y'all have said, I was in a decent position to win. I think Josh would have been too after I was gone. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't think so. I mean,
Josh, I have the confidence in you to be able to pitch a game well enough to like swing
trust
some
me,
votes.
I was so ready. I was like, I'm gonna get to the end and I'm gonna like try to like spin this as well as I can, even though I had like no game. But yeah,
I don't know. I think, but like Jay was able to do a lot, stay unnominated, you know, like stay with no votes. So I think the speeches are really, Nolan, you're like, that's tea.
Nolan said final two speeches are where people's games are born or people's games die.
Because like we can have all the perception we want, but like we can think that Jay and Justin played these great games, but if they get there and like can't argue it at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
It's not going to matter at all, because at the end of the day, if they don't believe in their own games, why should we? Like,
and Nolan said, out of all the jurors, the 4 right here are the bullshit detectors.
Facts. Boop, 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 boop.
Wow, jury alliances.
I just don't know about that.
Should we add prod? I'm so sorry.
Final 4?
Add prod to all chats, please.
Nolan finally gets
Nolan, welcome.
Alliance.
He can join Big Brother Goose.
Big Brother
Also, the fact
Goosebumps,
that you
welcome.
can Big Brother Goosebumps without just.
And then when I was like, hey, I was like, yeah, maybe me, Madison, and Josh can make, or like we can work together, Justin. He was like, do it. And I go to Madison, she was like, no. I was like, okay, I'm not looking at your 3 chat with Justin.
But
Period.
yeah, I don't know. It's definitely going to be like, I think for me, like a lot of it is going to be based off of what they say at the final questioning. Because like for me, like I feel like I know a lot of Justin's game. I feel like I know a lot of Caleb's game, but for me, a lot of Jay's game still feels very distant for me, even though we were supposed to be like really close allies the whole game. So I really would like to hear what Jay has to say. Like I'm rooting for all 3 of them. Like I don't have any reason not to root against. Like I don't have no reason to root against somebody. But I really would be interested in hearing what Jay has to say out of all 3 of them. I think I want to hear what his speech would be more than the other 2, but that's just me. Oh, we did have a question for Madison.
Oh.
Nolan was curious about the miscommunication between you and Jay when he nominated you, and then like you were taken off the block, and when he put Jonah out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was funny. Miscommunication. Was it an actual miscommunication? I think that's what they want to know.
Oh yeah, no,
I mean,
literally.
I kind of know because I was there, but I don't remember enough of the details. I didn't remember enough of the details to like accurately portray to Nolan what happened. I was there, but like I am still confused about it.
Well, that was my thing, is because like Jake came to me. I don't know if it was in that chat with Nolan as well, but he like came to me and was like, I'm thinking of putting up Madison just off the stuff that I've heard. So I was like, and then that's why I was so confused why like he was like running around sending me voice messages being like, hey, the information I heard was wrong. If someone wins veto, could they take down Madison? I was like, I mean, like that's a valid feeling.
Yeah, so to my knowledge, what happened was it was a miscommunication with something that I told him when I was on call with Jay. He asked me something about Billy, and Billy had mentioned to me the previous round, like who he thought was close. And he mentioned like the group of like, just all of the different groups. And his read was pretty accurate. So like, and I wasn't going to sit there and like hype it up, but I also wasn't going to deny it because that felt equally as stupid. So I was just like, yeah, no, I definitely see like those people being close. But then Billy was like, yeah, but I don't want to go after them. And I didn't either. So I was like, okay, cool. So like we're all good then. Jay, when Jay and I were on call, he mistook that as me saying that like Billy was grouping those people together to target them, which is something that I never said. I never like implied that Billy was targeting that group of people. So when Jay heard that and then the stories didn't match up, that's why I ended up on the block from what I was told. And then because I messaged Jay immediately because he told me I was good like an hour and a half before noms, and then I went up with no notice. So I was like, what the fuck is going on? So we talked about it immediately. It was like a 5-minute conversation. And then people were telling me he was telling them to use the veto on me. So I it felt genuine. I'm also curious if he still wanted me out because to my knowledge, like he told me immediately that like he was telling people to use the veto on me and that he would do the same if he won it. And other people came to me immediately to be like, hey, Jay just came to me, told me it was a miscommunication. I'm going to use the veto on you with his blessing.
And I know, like, I remember when after that nomination ceremony, Madison, you left, and Rachel and I were still on call with Jay, and there was somebody else there that I can't remember. And like Rachel was also like very adamant that that there was a miscommunication because like you were messaging the big threats chat and we're like, I have no idea what's going on. And we were sort of like, I think there was a miscommunication, but Rachel was very much like going to bat for you
because Rachel and I had just talked about it. Rachel and I had just talked about like the Billy stuff and like the fact that he knew that a lot of those people were close, but that we were going to try to use that to like get Billy to keep a group of us safe. Right. Like Rachel and I had discussed that. So the fact that like, and I brought that up to Rachel. So why would I go tell Rachel that, but not Jay the same thing? Like that was the thing. Like I did not lie. I did not like I wasn't trying to because those were all like a group of people that all I thought wanted to work together. Why would I try to like
no, but screw myself? Like part of the story is that Rachel also was a big part of Madison coming off the block that week because she was very much supporting what Madison was saying in terms of like, I'm not coming after Jay. Like, I don't want to, you know. And so that was part of the reason why Jay ended up changing his mind because Rachel was very much advocating for Madison to not be a target.
Yeah. Well, I think just the fact that I had Rachel and Billy there to kind of like corroborate my story and be like, hey, no, she never said that. Like if she would have said that to you, she would have said that to me and she never did. So like,
yeah, I mean, like as someone who is like kind of like at the time, like I was working with Jay, like it was, he like, yeah, the timeline does match up because I think it was about an hour or like half an hour before noms when he was like, I'm going to put up Madison. And I was like, oh, okay, like King, if that's what you're going to do, like, I'm not going to say no. Like, and then for him to like voice message like that chat of me and Nolan and be like, hey, like I'm asking people if they win veto to take Madison down. I was like, why are you telling us this? Like, we're not playing veto, like, and you told us you were putting Madison up. And so like I was just confused. Like exactly. I was just like, hello. And then for him to put up Jonah made no sense. Like it worked for me because like if I won HOH, I probably was putting up Jonah, but like it made no sense for Jay's game, I feel, to put up Jonah. Like, I think it was just an easy move for Jay to make.
So from what Jay told me, when he originally talked to me before noms, he was going to put up, who went up against me originally?
It wasn't Grace. It was,
I don't remember, but either way, it was me and whoever it was. And then when,
Chloe?
like.
Was it Chloe?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was.
Yes, it was because Madison came down and Jonah went up.
And and then Jonah stayed over, Chloe stayed over Jonah. Anyway, but God, what was I gonna say now? Fuck, God damn it, my ADD. Whenever he was talking to me originally, he said he was gonna put up Chloe and Billy, and at that point, I was good with Billy, and I wanted to stay good with Billy. So like, it kind of worked out the way that I went up because it made Jay and Billy talk enough that Billy didn't go up. So it kind of worked out because I was able to like keep like ties on a lot of stuff. I don't know. It worked out for me in the end, but it was very scary. But the timelines do add up, I think. Like that feels genuine.
It was just like, I wasn't even annoyed you were going up. It was like after like, and I think I told Madison this privately. It's like, I like from day one, I try to make it my mission to be Chloe's number one and for Chloe to be my number one. And so, but like when she's going up every round, it's so hard. And that's why I eventually like started shifting towards working full time with Nolan. Stop sending me simp over private messages, Nolan. I know I am. That's not the point. But that's why like that like those few votes were like when I was making it, because it like I was like, yes, like I'm saving, well, because I think I messaged Nolan. I was like, this round I'm thinking with my head this time and not with my heart. And I just think it's smarter for Jonah to go for my game because he's already put me up in the past, and he's not like everyone's biggest fan. So like, yeah, I know, dickhead.
Nolan said, I told you I would save Chloe for you both times, and then evicted him both times.
I was like, okay. Well, at the end of the day, like I was like, okay, like because even like what was it when there was one round where I was just like so done with it. I was like, if Chloe goes, Chloe goes. But then after a while, like I had to get that because like at the end of the day, like Chloe was my number one. Like I wasn't just gonna. In this game, I tried to play more loyal, which fucked me over at the end. But yeah. But to go back on our original topic, I like I said, I think Caleb's biggest move is gonna be if he can speak his game at the finale.
Yeah.
Because like his strategy, like him acting dumb isn't a move, it's a strategy, it's a way of playing the game. But like I unless no. So for update, Nolan said Caleb's gonna get the plug award because of all these deals. At the end of the day, I'm like,
That's the tea, though.
what is the T?
No, I said that's the tea, though. Caleb's biggest move is his safety deals, his safety circle.
Yeah. And being able to present that at the end, I think.
Wait, okay, yeah. Can we talk about the fact that like half of Caleb's gameplay has been flirting with people?
When he openly admitted to almost every person in the cast that he had a big crush on Madison, and then
when he admitted to everybody that he sent nudes to so many people. Like I just don't know.
Okay, but like Justin also did that.
I mean, I
Like
respect the grind.
exactly.
It's not for me, but respect the grind.
No, but I thought it was really funny the night that we had the big BDSM test stuff. Like he was like, Nolan, do you want to be in my private story? I'm like, we just spent an hour harassing Nolan about how he's straight.
About how straight he is. Yeah.
And then he was like, can I add you to my private story? I was like, anyway, does anyone have any game related questions?
I just oh.
It's the way
Not a game related question.
I'm really sad that I missed that first big house call because it sounded like everybody had so much fun. And then I was talking with Rachel about it, and she was like, I thought you were there the whole time. And I was like, nope, I was not there. And Rachel's like, because she was talking about, I forget even which vote it was, but she was like, wanted to keep like people around because of like the vibes and like that. I forget who it was. Maybe it was Jonah. I don't even remember who we evicted that round. But she was like talking.
Oh, was it Lamar?
I don't remember. Oh no, I think it.
Because I know Rachel was adamant on saving.
I think it was Grace. I'm pretty sure it was the round Grace went home. But like she was like, yeah, everybody was vibing, and then she's like, when I like am thinking about like the call that night, I'm like, oh yeah, like Madison was there and Seb was there and Nolan was there and Josh was there, and then she was like, no wait, Josh wasn't there.
No, literally, and that's because Rachel and I had a one-on-one call about that too, like before we were on that like group call talking about it, where we were like, oh yeah, and then Josh was like, wait, Josh wasn't there. Like
Josh's social game was so good that people thought he had a social game.
facts.
Also, I am glad I didn't miss the second one either, Michael. So
Yeah, my question at the end is gonna be like, so Justin, Caleb, Jay, who did you send nudes to in this cast? Why haven't they come to me?
I got zero.
I thankfully got 0.
I have gotten 0. Nolan? Oh,
No. Damn, we're so unloved.
Unloved? Time out. Hello?
Not the unfortunately.
Nothing, unfortunately. No.
I feel like no one played 1984 and his brain went, well, no.
Well, I.
And see the wheel. See that? Okay, like I don't that okay. So like the fact that no one pulling me off with the veto is one of the reasons why people started targeting me. And they were like, Nolan promised. Yeah, exactly. They were like, Nolan promised Justin that he was gonna use the veto on him. I was like, how is that my fault? Like all I did was go to Nolan and say, hey, could you use the veto on me? I told him the reasons why he should use it. And he told me he'd think about it. So how is it my fault when people are like, oh, no one's promising people the veto? I'm like, hello? Cries? So that's all it takes for you to say to not use the veto? For people who are watching, he said he DM'd me that night. I posted me drunk singing Kesha, asking if I'd POV'd him.
It was a good night.
And I said, probably. That was a good night. Also, not Madison and Josh saying they're unloved.
When did I say that?
Madison was like, oh, we're so unloved.
It was a joke about the nudes. I feel very loved. I'm very content, and I don't want nudes from anyone in this cast.
Anyways, guys, where's your vote leaning? And
I think I said this to Nolan. I think I said this when you guys were gone. I basically said like, whoever takes Caleb is probably getting my vote. But if it's Jay versus Justin, it's going to be a lot harder of a decision.
So I feel like the conversation is kind of like winding down at this point. So do we want to kind of finish up at this point? Or do we have more?
Yeah, I think I'm in the camp that Josh is in. I think like not that like I'm just gonna be like, oh, it's Caleb and Jay, so I'm gonna go vote for Jay, or it's gonna be Caleb and Justin, or I'm gonna go vote Justin. Because I think
I'm gonna hear what Caleb has to say, but like I said, I think unless he comes out with something mind blowing, I don't know that there's much that he can do.
I feel like it's going to be close between Caleb and Justin, just because I don't like the excessive lies that Justin told me in the game. Whereas like, at least with Caleb, like he didn't bullshit me. But the only reason he didn't bullshit me was because we didn't talk a lot of games. It always ended up becoming a personal conversation. But when he was going to go do something in the game, he would come to me and be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Or like, hey, I'm voting you out, Seb. Like he told me up front that he was probably going to evict me the night that Nolan used the veto and Chloe went up. Like he told me straight up, he was like, yeah, I'm probably going to evict you tomorrow. What has happened? Compare every juror to a Disney character. Please do. If any of them, but yeah, no, that's like, I feel like Jay wins in any scenario for me. Like I'm obviously gonna hear them out, but like I think like Justin's like he did, like if Madison did say like Justin came to him and explained a lot of the lies that he did in the game, if he's able to do that for me, then I am more willing to vote for a game that's a lot like very open, very honest. You're not hiding anything at the end. You're not kissing ass. Like own your shit. That's like all I could really say to the final three, because if they could do that, because I think all three of them have games that deserve a win. It's just, will they own those games or will they start kissing ass?
Okay, so I'm gonna wrap this up. So as I kind of always say, this is your guys' season. When you're voting, vote for the person you want to represent this season of 2024. Obviously, this was the second chance this season. I'm so glad that we had all of you back. I think this is an excellent season. I'm not sure where it ranks yet. We'll have to see how the game finishes up and all that stuff. But I'm so happy with how the season has gone. I'm glad that we did this season when we did it. So so think about what questions you're going to be asking them. Obviously, we still have a whole HOH competition to complete, but in just a few days, we will have our 9th winner of 1984. So that is all I have